Hi, this is Charles Matthews. I'm the architect here at Grizzly Bear Architecture and Design, and today we're looking at how to design a new commercial structure.
Hi, this is Charles Matthews. Today we are looking at how to design a commercial structure. Now, this presentation is in some ways similar to the presentation of how to design a house, a new house, in that some of the aspects are similar. Some of the aspects of design are similar, and the process is similar. So that is what you need to keep in mind if you're comparing these two. But the primary difference is the purpose. That for commercial architecture, commercial building, uh, the whole root focus is commerce, and we'll get into that in just a few minutes. But I want to underscore at the beginning the importance. If you're going to understand how to design a commercial structure, you need to understand that when you come to an architect, you're coming for a custom design product. You're not going to a off-the-shelf pre-engineered building. You are not going to a big box retail store for a toaster. You are going to an architect, and you're hiring him for a custom design. And so uh, if you understand that that is the case, uh, you won't see architecture and architectural design as a commodity like wheat or uh, pork bellies or whatever you may have there. It's not a commodity in the sense of something that is standard, readily available, and prices fluctuate based on supply and demand as much because it's a custom design. It's for you specifically, and it's for your needs specifically. So architects are hired for custom design. Now, the process of design, uh, it will vary somewhat between architects and in terms of the different ways that they operate their business. But the overall process of designing is going to be the same regardless of the building type. So if you want to see a common denominator, it's not necessarily the time, energy, and effort spent in designing, rather, it's the process. So the process of designing stays the same. Now, there are key things to consider when you're doing commercial that you wouldn't consider necessarily on completing a residential process. And so the things that you consider are primarily cost driven and revenue related. And all buildings are unique, and I'll have things that will have to be dealt with in a new and specific way. So uh, what we're talking about here is you have extremely unique, individual, and different needs that others don't have. So we'll go ahead and get into the rest of the presentation now. So we look at commercial architecture or new commercial architecture in our how to design a commercial structure, and you see it in the word there. The root of the word is commerce, and commerce has to do with transactions, and transactions have to do with one person selling and another person buying. The whole point of commercial architecture is to generate revenue and profit. And I would also add that it is with a view toward generating as much revenue as possible in as little time as possible using all means that are legal. And I would hope it would not just be legal, but they'd also be moral and ethical. And so where do you do this project? Well, you do it where people are going to be. Sometimes you can have a successful project where, the whole idea of you build it and they will come. That does take a lot of work, though, on the marketing side in order to make something like that successful. You have to be able to when you're doing a commercial uh, project, you want to make sure that you are you have as your bottom line understanding the generating of revenue and profit as much as is possible. Now, and like I said, within ethical, moral, legal means. So I want to look at branding for just a moment. Now, branding is a way of being able to anchor in the mind of the person who is consuming an item or a service. It is the means of being able to evoke certain emotions, certain feelings, certain thoughts that speak of the product or service that they will be purchasing. And it not just speaks of it, but it also tells them how they are going to feel after they have partaken in whatever service or purchase of the product they have they've transacted with and for. And so the importance of design related to branding is from the moment the person first catches a glimpse of the building, whether it be from an image on the internet or driving by or walking by, the importance of the design cannot be understated because you're creating in the mind of the person uh, the first experience, and it has to be something that communicates the experience well. Okay, and it could be something exciting, dynamic. It could be something traditional. Uh, it could vary in terms of style, but the overall goal of how do you want the person to feel when they have finished their transaction, how do you want to engage with them on a regular basis? That's the importance of the whole idea of branding. And you want it to be a service to them. You want to uh, do to others as you would have them do to you if uh, if you were in their same situation and circumstance. And so it's going toward a nobility of purpose. And so yeah, there is the whole attitude of crass commercialism, just doing things for the purpose of getting money. Uh, and certainly when you're designing the experience, that is the focus, but there should be a higher understanding which promotes the worth and value and dignity of each person that is partaking in the transaction of the experience of the building and thereby the brand and thereby the product. So the design is valuable, especially from that aspect. If you think of various phones on the market nowadays, you can see the importance of branding. You know, there are some that stick out in your mind and others that just kind of go by the wayside. So you see the importance of design. And there's also the importance of considering the experience of the user of the space, the user of the brand, before they experience it, while they are experiencing it, and after they experience it. These things have to be in mind, and they have to be kept in the forefront of your consideration when you are embarking on designing a commercial structure. So think about how to design a commercial structure. Well, you want to start with the end in mind. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get into the overview of the process now. After you've considered those things and you have a pretty solid idea of what you want to do, the reasons why, not just revenue wise, but especially branding wise, We'll look at the process from a big picture perspective. And obviously, we're going with a big picture perspective because the small pictures are going to vary based on the client, based on the situation. So, the overview, we establish guiding goals, determine cost constraints, find funding, establish a relationship with a realtor, acquire an architect, design the building, and we could also add design the experience and design the brand, and gain approval from governing authorities. So this is the overall process. We first look at guiding goals. There are three primary things you want to do in establishing goals. You want to have 5 primary non-negotiable goals that you must reach with the design, without which, if you had not established and met these goals, you would not need to do the design. So you have to establish those. Those have to be communicated straight up front, and the architect has to be aware of those when he is designing. Next, establish 5 more goals of things that you would like to have if possible. And so this would be kind of like things that would be nice to have but are not necessarily critical to the overall purpose and function. And finally, establish 5 dream goals of the things that you would love to have in the building. It would be a dream from the viewpoint of, oh, wouldn't it be great if we could do this? And this is a fill in the blank. So next we look at cost constraints. Every project has limited resources. There are very few situations where money would not be an object, and in considering the situation that most people are in, you have to consider the cost. And so there are costs to consider for how you would acquire a loan if you're going to be acquiring a loan for the design and construction of the building. Costs for design by way of the architect, cost of construction by way of the general contractor. What are the fixtures, furnishings, and equipment that you want to have in the end product? Like if you need to have some fixtures or you need to have inventory, all that has to be planned for from the beginning. And finally, contingencies. What money do you have set aside in case something not so good happens? If someone makes a mistake or an error, what are the contingencies? Next, we go into the whole idea of finding the funding. There are an extremely small number of people, a limited few people are ever in a position where they can design and build their own commercial buildings. So there is an extreme cost savings that comes if you are not renting your building, but you own your building. For one thing, you can plan to have other people in the same space renting from you, and if they are doing that, it's possible for their rent to pay for your entire mortgage. In fact, I would certainly recommend setting up the situation that way. Funding can also come by way of your saving, by way of keeping a part of your profit aside. You're investing by way of putting money aside and in your own savings, but also bringing in other people who have done the same thing. They would expect a return on their investment, obviously, and you need to make sure from the front end that your investors get that they get the return that they were promised, so that your investors are happy and you've kept your word. Additionally, construction loans. That's another way. There are various types of loans that would be available for constructing commercial buildings. And by the way, this is a good point to say. I'm not a financial planner, financial advisor, tax preparer, or tax specialist. I'm not an accountant or a lawyer. I'm an architect, and so these are from my limited exposure to these areas. And your situation is going to vary from what you encounter in this presentation. So construction loans and mortgages. Mortgages are another vehicle whereby you would be able to achieve funding. Next, we're looking at the relationship that you can have with a realtor. One of the key benefits is that they will be able to help you to find properties, and the properties that they have access to are the ones that happen before everything goes on the market. If a piece of land is needing to be sold and the realtor is aware of it prior to it going on the market, you can have really a really good experience as far as finding the property that you need. Most realtors have a primary obligation to the lister, the one who lists, and so you would want to make sure that you form a relationship with a realtor where they are the buyer's agent as opposed to the seller's agent. That puts them in your corner as far as interaction is concerned. And this relationship with a realtor can be really helpful. Okay, we next start looking at acquiring an architect. You would like to be able to, after you have assessed which architect you would want to have on your project, you'd want to bring him on prior to doing the construction drawings, prior to the design. You want to hire him as an additional service to assist you in assessing possible sites for your building. And there are tools that he has access to that can help him to easily and quickly assess zoning requirements. As two examples come to mind, easements. If an easement is running through your property, that may extremely limit the amount of building that you can have. And so if you don't know the easements or possible workarounds for the easements, an example would be maybe the foundation of a building needs to be designed to be deeper if there is an easement right in front that could require construction. Another thing to consider related to this is if you have if you bought a property for commercial purposes and it's in a flood zone, you may be able to still salvage the possibility of doing your building there, but the part of the problem is it's going to cost a lot more money by way of bringing a civil engineer in order to build the property up enough so that flood issues will not end up being actual issues. So if you don't know that when you are investing in the property, then you can run into a situation where you've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars to acquire the property, or even millions of dollars, and if you don't know these things, then the costs can really start to add up. So bringing on the architect as an additional service early on can help in assessing pieces of property that you have. He can make recommendations as far as soil engineers are concerned to make sure that the bearing capacity of the soil will be able to handle the building, and also you'll be able to know on the front end how much money you're going to sink into the earth in order for the foundation to be able to hold the building that you want to build. So the architect can quickly assess zoning requirements, land qualities, and can guide you through the process, especially if you have requirements related to views, like I mentioned, soil, bearing capacities, etc. And if the soil isn't strong enough in and of itself, it doesn't mean your project is wiped out, but it is going to cost a lot more to do it because sinking piles into the ground can be an expensive process. Next, we look at the design of the building. And the important thing that would be helpful in the whole process is so you should consider bringing the architect on as in a process called architect-led design build. That way the architect is the one who ends up being the police of the project, and the architect is the one who ultimately hires the general contractor and manages the project so that costly delays by way of RFIs and change orders will be minimized. So the architect-led design build contract, establishing with the architect construction management as part of his responsibility. Face it, he's going to be uh, interacting with your general contractor anyhow by way of RFIs that the general contractor may have, requests for information. And so if that's the case, why not just bring the architect in on the job in the first place and make sure that that the process is going well, and he will have to verify uh, whether the general contractor has generally completed the architectural plans as he ought to have completed them, and the paying of the creation and construction of the building is directly related to the fulfillment of the design criteria as seen in the construction documents. I like to recommend to my clients that they complete what's called a construction feasibility analysis. Now, this is a document that's more than a rough estimate, although it has aspects of an estimate in it. The value and benefit of this is that it includes aspects of having an architectural program, building code review and analysis, talking to the agencies and governing authorities in order to ensure the viability of the project, and talking to various vendors and subcontractors that may need to be a part of the whole process. So it's like an overview document as far as the construction of the building is concerned. Next, we get into we would have all the various phases of the architecture project, including schematic design, design development, and construction documents. And after the project has been approved by the authorities, which I'll go into a little more detail in our last slide, but after it's been approved, then comes construction management. And basically, that's the architect serving as a policeman to make sure that the general contractor is doing his job as much as is possible. Now, I say this with a view, I have nothing against general contractors per se. There are problems that come into play when the architect has worked on a project for a long time with the client. Then the GC comes along, talks to the client, and changes the client's mind based on cost, but the client ends up not being as happy because the design has changed from the original intent. So anyhow, that's construction management. And finally, we look at a little bit more of a detailed picture related to approval by governing authorities. Now, the authorities can be the planning department, the engineering department, building and safety department, water department, electrical and other utilities, as well as other departments such as the uh, health department if you're going to be preparing or storing food, as an example. So all of these various governing agencies and authorities have their own say in what happens, and each of them have to some degree their own cost. And so knowing that from the beginning by way of getting a construction feasibility analysis, it would be really helpful for you as the builder. So that's the big picture overview of what it means to design a commercial structure. You want to first of all consider the importance of design by way of branding, uh, establishing the guiding goals that you have for the building, the cost constraints, the funding sources, uh, the need to have a realtor, acquiring an architect, and especially focusing on what's called an architect-led design build, the process of designing the building, and getting approval from the governing agencies. So if you do those things, you will have completed the design of the commercial structure. Thanks so much for your time in listening to this presentation. Feel free to visit us at grizzlybeararchitecture.com for more information. Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.
Hi, this is Charles Matthews. Just wanted to say thanks for watching the video. If you have any thoughts or comments, feel free to leave those below. Visit our website at grizzlybeararchitecture.com. This video is one in a series of videos that address various issues surrounding architecture and our practice of architecture and Grizzly Bear Architecture. And if you have any thoughts or comments, I'd really appreciate those. Thanks.